wet day today. But not all bad. I've got some improvements to work on anyways, in terms of my archery. And I do not mean my shooting skills. I mean something that's going to help me carry my arrows a little differently. Might actually be easier. For this episode of Beorn's Tent, I am going to be making a quiver. A new quiver for my arrows that hopefully they won't slide out of. I'm using fleece for this because it's very washable, and you know, it's no secret to say that your arrows are going to get dirty if you're recovering them a lot. And plus, since it can't fray, it's a lot easier to work with it. It's easier to sew together since there's no weave. And it's easy to cut and flexible too. And this particular color is very good for stealth, which is perfect for a ranger, and extremely soft. As you can see, the texture looks a little different on one side than the other. So for the outside of the quiver, I'm going to be using this because the texture looks a lot more earthy and like it could be grass or a bush or something, whereas this looks a lot more flat. This piece is 12.5 inches by 6 feet. And since this is the side that I'm going to use for the outside of the quiver, I'm going to fold it this way so that it's about 3 feet long. And when you're making a quiver like this, it's a good idea to have the quiver longer than your arrows, so that way you can close it. You can close them inside for storage purposes. It's better to have a little too much than to have a lot too little and have them not all fit, you know? I'll try not to bore you very much with the sewing, but I'm going to be using this brown thread for a couple of reasons. One, because it's another camouflage color, one that I'm used to, and also because it stands out from the green enough so that if it gets damaged or something, then I can see where the damage is and can repair it easier. Like if a seam breaks or something. Sewing takes a while, especially when you're doing it by hand. Funny story. Something that I messed up on. I have no idea how. This is the quiver that I'm basing my measurement off of. About 12 or so inches around. Now, the original plan at first was to have one long strip and then fold it across. Okay. And then sew the bottom and then one of the sides. But what I learned is another tip that I was actually going to mention later, is that the bottom is supposed to be solid because, well, it makes sense because the arrows go in point first. And so the 12 inches across, that's how big the whole thing is supposed to be around, whereas if I put it together like this, it's going to be twice as big and it's going to be huge. So, okay, remember what I said about the too much better than too little thing? Well, not in this case. This is too big. I don't know how I missed that little detail. But, you know, it's a good thing I didn't, you know, have enough time to finish sewing it yet. So now I can cut that side out. Oh my God. I knew something was off about that. I just did not notice what it was until right now. Ugh. Great. Just great. Now that this is out of the way, We're on the right track. Notice how the bottom is just a fold. There's no seam in it. It'd be kind of awkward if you're shooting and you're trying to pull an arrow out and then suddenly the bottom of the quiver just rips open. It would not be good. Hard part's over. Now we get to the fun stuff, the drawstring. So when you have a drawstring at the top of the quiver, then you can adjust it so that way, you know, your chances of the arrows falling out are a lot smaller. And so there are a few ways you can do this. One is to have a hem at the top and you slide the drawstring through that. But since fleece doesn't unravel, like I said before, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to punch some holes into the top and thread this string through it. It's just a drawstring that I took off of an old bag that I've never used. And oh, and of course this was attached to it, which makes it a lot easier to adjust. I don't know how many of you have actually taken these apart before, but if you haven't, get a good look at it. That's all it is. It's got the spring in there to keep it open, and when you push it down, it loosens and you can adjust it up and down the string, and tighten it or loosen it. You don't really have to be exact when it comes to figuring out where the holes are gonna go for this, so I'm just gonna put 3 in per side. So put 1 here. Next part might be a little tricky for some, figuring out what to attach it to. Or should I say how you're gonna attach it to your belt or your waist, whichever way you do it. I have 1 long strip of cord here, so basically what I'm gonna do is make 2 short loops and put 1 at either end, but not exactly on the end. The first one at the top is obviously going to go a couple inches below the drawstring, I think. And for the one at the bottom, I'm not sure just where that's going to go. Because when you have a quiver at your waist and it's back here, then, here I'll show you with this. If you have the end right here on your left side, then you have to grab all the way over here and actually I'm not sure what difference it makes, but when it comes to making this sort of thing, you think about how far you have to extend your arm to pull the arrow out. Right, I'm gonna put the first one on this side because odds are I'm going to want to be able to adjust it while I'm wearing it and when I'm shooting. So, if that's the case, then the loop should be close to the drawstring. Let me put that in there just so that I don't lose it. Because this is very soft stuff and sometimes it can be hard to see where you punched the hole. gonna cheat here and make the second hole where the loop on this quiver is. Yeah, I could do a lot of guesswork on my own right now, but I'm choosing not to. I'll just go with this. There, now I've got a more comfortable spot to store my arrows. I've got a good feeling about this one. I hope you enjoyed a couple of more archery tidbits in this episode of Beorn's Tent, and I will talk to you from Wilderland later. How that? Yeah. Actually, you know what? Let me redo that. 2 small loops for either, I didn't start that off right.